Ever get that feeling like, you know, like you were just steps away from something awful happening,
Mm-hmm.
but you didn't even realize it at the time? That's how I feel about Donna Dole's story.
Oh, wow.
We're going to take a deep dive into her unsolved murder from back in 1970.
Okay.
And then we're going to jump way ahead and look at the Hindenburg disaster.
All right.
Two totally different events, right? But they both have that same kind of mystery,
Yeah.
like that what-if feeling, you know?
Mm.
And you've given us some really cool sources to work with this time.
I'm excited to dig in.
So let's see what we can uncover.
Sounds good to me. It is interesting, how these things, like a young woman disappearing and then an airship, crashing in flames.
Right.
They both make us wonder about things we can't explain.
Yeah, exactly. Like, why do some events just leave us with more questions than answers?
Exactly.
So, okay, let's start with Donna Dole.
Okay.
It's 1970 Northern Illinois University picture. Busy walkways, tons of students rushing to class, that feeling like anything is possible.
Gotcha.
It all seems so, lively and perfect almost.
Yeah.
Until you realize that there's this dark story happening underneath it all.
Right.
Donna, she's a bright 21-year-old student,
Mm-hmm.
and she just vanishes.
Senior in college, too, right?
Yeah, just disappears from this bustling campus.
Yeah.
And it's like...
It's crazy because she was known for being responsible and dedicated, too.
I know.
Like, she clocks out from her library job 9:59 p.m. October 2nd, Friday night.
Okay.
Her best friend, also named Donna, by the way,
Oh,
was supposed to meet her just a few minutes later.
Yeah.
For their usual coffee and walk thing.
Yeah.
But Donna Dole never shows up.
Her friend waited for like 20 minutes.
Oh, man.
That must have felt like forever.
It would.
Like they were so close to being in the same place at the same time.
Yeah.
But something went wrong in those few minutes.
Something bad, yeah. And that missed meeting is so important because
Yeah.
it gives us a really small window of time for something to have happened. And to make it even weirder, she left all her stuff in her dorm room.
Really?
Clothes, suitcase, even her allergy medicine. Like the important stuff.
Wow. So it's like she just vanished into thin air.
Exactly.
So unsettling. And I read that the police at first just assumed she'd run off.
Oh, no.
Like for a secret weekend with a boyfriend or something.
Ugh, that's such a common thing in these cases.
Really?
Especially with young women. It can really mess things up.
How so?
Well, it delays the investigation because they're not taking it seriously at first.
Yeah.
And in Donna's case, it just doesn't make sense.
Right.
Why leave everything behind, including her paycheck, if she planned it?
It's so frustrating to think about all the wasted time because of that.
It really is. They didn't even report her missing for 2 whole days.
2 days.
Yeah, it was her house parents who finally did it. That's so much lost time.
Time that could have been used to find clues.
Exactly. And then the search just kept getting bigger.
Yeah.
Went beyond the campus, out into the farmlands. Then on October 11th, some teenagers, they were out looking for their beer stash.
Of course.
They found her body in a cornfield.
Oh gosh, that's awful.
Yeah.
It's like even in those places that seem peaceful and safe, bad things can still happen.
It really is. And the location being so far from campus, it makes you think someone was trying to hide what they did.
For sure. But it's the details about her body that are even more disturbing.
Yeah, like what was up with that? She was fully dressed, but no shoes or purse. And they never found those either.
Good.
And the strangest thing, she was wearing a jacket that wasn't even hers.
That's so weird. The autopsy also showed something really bizarre.
What was that?
She'd eaten like 5 or 6 pounds of potatoes before she died.
5 to 6 pounds. That's a lot of potatoes.
I know, right? It's such a strange detail. It has to mean something.
Makes you wonder, was she forced to eat them? Or could it be like some local thing,
Yeah, like some kind of ritual or something.
Yeah.
It was like the killer wanted to leave a clue.
Yeah, a messed up clue for sure. The jacket, the potatoes. It's like pieces of a puzzle, but we don't know what the picture is.
And finding her body so far away, it all points to this being planned out,
Absolutely. So who are the police looking at?
Well, they focused on 2 guys. Donna's ex-boyfriend, Charles.
Okay.
He was known to be controlling, and he was really upset about the breakup.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was another boyfriend in Pennsylvania, but they didn't name him.
Interesting. What do you think about those guys?
Well, it makes sense to look at people close to the victim rate.
Statistically, yeah, it's usually someone they know.
Okay.
Charles was interesting because they found Donna's body near his apartment.
Oh, wow.
And he actually organized a search party that got pretty close to where they found her.
Really?
Yeah, but he always said he was innocent, even offered to take a lie detector test.
Hmm.
So, being close by and having a history of being controlling, those are red flags.
Right.
But it doesn't automatically mean he did it. And the police never found enough proof to charge him.
And what about the other boyfriend?
Oh, he had an alibi, so they cleared him pretty quickly.
So we're left with this young woman. Clearly someone wanted to hurt her.
Yeah.
We've got these weird clues, but no answers.
And the killer could still be out there.
Decades later, and the case is still open. It's heartbreaking.
It really is for her family and the whole community.
It just shows how sometimes justice is really hard to find.
Even with all the technology and the best efforts of the police, some cases just stay unsolved.
And it leaves behind so much pain and unanswered questions.
So much loss, too.
It's chilling to think about that some stories just don't have a neat ending.
Yeah.
But maybe by talking about the details, considering all the possibilities, maybe that's how we keep these cold cases alive.
Yeah.
Hoping that one day justice will win out.
I hope so.
Donna's story really makes you think about the mysteries that are out there, even in the places you think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. It is kind of a shift, though, right?
It is. Let's move on to a different kind of tragedy. This one, well, it was huge.
Okay.
The Hindenburg disaster.
Right. Yeah.
It's interesting how both of these stories, even though they're so different,
Yeah.
they both give you that feeling of awe and terror.
That's true. Like,
Yeah.
one is this personal thing hidden in the shadows, and the
Oh.
other is this huge public spectacle.
Exactly. And I think most people know the basics, right?
Oh, yeah.
They've seen the pictures of the flames. They've heard that, oh, the humanity line.
Mm-hmm.
But today, we're going to dig deeper.
Yeah.
We're going to look at the history, the intrigue, all the things that led up to this awful event.
It's so much more than just an airship crashing.
Yeah.
It really changed how people thought about air travel.
Okay, so let's go back to the beginning, the early days of Zeppelins.
Right.
These weren't just blimps, right? They were massive luxury airships.
No, not just blimps. They were rigid airships. Like, they had these internal frameworks that made them way bigger than blimps.
Wow.
And they could be fancier, too.
Like how?
They had cabins for passengers, dining rooms, even areas where you could walk around with big windows.
So you could see everything. Can you imagine crossing the Atlantic back then?
Yeah.
Not crammed in a tiny plane, but floating through the sky in luxury?
It would felt so futuristic.
It really would.
Yeah.
And for a while, it seemed like Zeppelins were the future of air travel.
They had a good run.
Then came the Hindenburg, like the king of all Zeppelins.
Mm-hmm.
This thing was enormous, longer than 3 football fields.
Seriously.
It was all about luxury technology.
But it had that connection to Nazi Germany, right?
Yeah, it did, and that casts a shadow over its whole story.
The Hindenburg was finished in 1936, right at the peak of Nazi power.
Wow.
It showed how good German engineering was,
Mm-hmm.
but the Nazis wanted to use it for their propaganda.
That's messed up. Like, you have this amazing piece of engineering,
Yeah.
a sign of human ingenuity.
But it's tied to this brutal, oppressive regime.
Exactly. And it gets even more complicated when you look at Dr. Hugo Eckener.
Oh, right. He was in charge of the Zeppelin company.
Yeah. And he was against the Nazis.
Which is a pretty brave stance at that time.
He and Joseph Goebbels, the propaganda minister, did not get along.
That's an understatement.
He was like science and progress battling against this totalitarian darkness.
Wow, yeah. That's a good way to put it.
So Goebbels wanted to use the Hindenburg to spread Nazi propaganda.
Figures?
Like drop leaflets all over Germany.
No way.
Eckener was against it. He said it was the wrong way to use technology.
He had principles.
But Goebbels got his way in the end.
Of course he did.
Eckener had to step down, and they found another pilot to do the leaflet drop.
It's scary how powerful they were.
I know. Even something as amazing as the Hindenburg could be used for evil.
Yeah. It's a good reminder that technology is a tool.
It could be used for good, for bad.
Exactly. But despite all the politics,
Yeah.
the Hindenburg kept making flights across the Atlantic.
Multiple trips to North and South America.
It was like it was rising above all the turmoil on the ground.
For a little while, anyway.
Yeah.
Then came May 1937.
Oh.
The Hindenburg was almost home landing in Lakehurst, New Jersey.
After a long trip from Germany,
Everyone was there to see it.
a big crowd reporters.
They all wanted to watch this incredible airship land. What happened?
Well, the landing was delayed for hours.
Why?
Bad weather. The airship had to circle around waiting for the all clear.
Oh, wow.
And then finally, a little after 7 p.m., as it started to come down,
Yeah.
disaster.
The pictures are burned into our minds. The tail catches fire
Yeah.
and then flames everywhere. This symbol of progress turned into a nightmare.
And it happened so fast.
Why?
It was full of hydrogen gas.
Okay.
Over 7 million cubic feet of it. Highly flammable stuff.
So it was like a giant bomb just waiting to go off.
Basically, yeah.
The people on the ground must have been terrified.
They were screaming, running for cover as burning pieces fell from the sky.
And on board, people were desperately trying to escape.
Jumping from windows hatches?
Some made it.
Yeah, some were lucky, but others were trapped.
Oh, gosh. It's just awful.
There's this one story of a cabin boy named Werner Franz.
I've heard of him.
He survived by holding onto a water tank.
Yeah, it burst open and soaked him.
Wow, what are the chances?
And the Donner family.
I remember reading about them.
The mom, her 2 daughters, and their dog.
Yeah.
They were thrown clear when the airship crashed.
Oh, my gosh.
They lived, but sadly the father didn't make it.
It's incredible that anyone survived.
It really is. It shows how resilient people can be.
Even when something this horrible happens. But it's still a tragedy.
Yeah, 35 people died, passengers, crew, even someone on the ground.
And it was all broadcast live on the radio.
Oh, yeah, by Herb Morrison.
Oh, the humanity will always be tied to that day.
His voice captured the horror, the shock.
Like no picture ever could.
And it made people all over the world feel connected to it.
A shared experience of grief and disbelief.
It's crazy how powerful live media can be.
And it brings those events right into your home.
Makes them feel real even if they're happening far away.
But of course, after something like this, everyone wants to know why.
Of course.
Yeah.
What went wrong? What caused this to happen? So many investigations trying to figure it all out.
Yeah. Engine failure, static electricity, even sabotage.
Right. The official reports from both the U.S. and Germany, though, they said it was probably an electrostatic discharge.
Like a spark.
Yeah, basically. A spark that set off all that hydrogen gas.
Wow. So this tiny spark brought down this huge airship.
It does seem crazy, right?
It does. But it shows you how dangerous hydrogen is.
Yeah, it might be great for making things float, but it's also super easy to ignite.
Some people who saw it happen said they saw a blue flame.
Oh, yeah, near the tail fin, right before the fire really took hold.
Exactly. And there was that theory about St. Elmo's fire.
Right, that weather thing. It's
Yeah.
a discharge of electricity that can happen around tall, pointy things.
Like a ship's mast.
Or an airship's tail fin. It looks really cool, but it's usually harmless.
So the investigators didn't think that was the main cause.
Probably not. They said it might have been there, but it didn't start the fire.
Okay, what about sabotage then? With all the political stuff going on back then, it doesn't seem impossible.
The Hindenburg was a big symbol of Nazi Germany.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that people who hated the Nazis might target it.
There was that guy, Joseph Spey.
Oh, yeah, the acrobat.
He was on board, and he was known to be anti-Nazi.
And remember, he had that dog in the freight room.
Yeah, he visited it all the time. Some people thought maybe he was planting something down there.
That theory has stuck around.
Yeah, I can see why. No clear answers, plus all that political tension.
Exactly. But they never found any real proof that Spade did it.
So was he just a guy worried about his dog? Or was it something more?
We might never know for sure.
It's frustrating, but it's also kind of what keeps these stories interesting.
Yeah, the mystery. The not knowing.
The Hindenburg disaster really changed things for air travel.
It did. People were suddenly scared of airships.
And that was the end of the Zeppelins.
The Hindenburg burning, it became a warning.
Like a symbol of the dangers of pushing technology too far.
Right. But it's not the end of the story.
How so?
Well, lately, people have been looking at airships again. Yeah, for things like cargo or surveillance. These new airships are totally different, though.
In what way?
Well, for one, they use helium.
Not hydrogen.
Exactly. Helium isn't flammable. And they use way better materials and technology.
They're safer.
Much safer. Companies like Goodyear even have Zeppelins now.
For advertising and stuff?
Yeah, they've come a long way.
So even though the Hindenburg was a terrible tragedy,
It was.
it also pushed people to find new solutions?
And safer ways to do things. Like, even from something awful, something good can come out of it.
I like that way of looking at it.
It's kind of amazing when you think about it.
Both Donna Dahl's story and the Hindenburg disaster.
Yeah.
They teach us about mystery and how we try to make sense of tragedy.
It's a very human thing to want answers.
It is. And even with all the information we have access to now, some questions just don't have answers.
That's true. And maybe that's what keeps these stories alive.
The need to find the missing pieces.
Donna's case reminds us to be careful. To question what we think we know, and to never give up on finding justice.
And the Hindenburg shows us how fragile innovation can be.
And how important it is to learn from mistakes.
Plus, it shows how strong the human spirit can be,
how we can overcome tough times and keep pushing forward.
This has been a really fascinating deep dive.
It has. Thank you for joining us.
We hope you enjoyed it. And if you have any thoughts or theories,
Or even your own unsolved mysteries you're curious about.
share them with us. We'd love to hear from you.
Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.
There's always something new to learn about the world and ourselves.